Inside a crowded courtroom, chaos erupted as a stray dog barged in, barking loudly 3 times before sitting in the center of the room. Moments later, something happened that left everyone frozen in disbelief. What could this mysterious dog be trying to reveal? The courtroom buzzed with tension as the case of the year unfolded, a high-stakes legal battle that had gripped the town for weeks. Every seat was taken, reporters scribbling notes, spectators leaning forward, eager to catch every word. Judge Martha Campbell, a seasoned magistrate known for her no-nonsense demeanor, sat at the bench, her gavel ready to maintain order. The defendant, a prominent businessman accused of embezzlement, sat stone-faced, flanked by his legal team. Across from him, the prosecution prepared to present its final argument. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors creaked open. At first, no one noticed, but the soft padding of paws across the tiled floor soon caught the room's attention. Gasps rippled through the audience as a stray dog, matted and thin, trotted into the courtroom. The dog's coat was dusty, its ribs faintly visible, yet there was an unmistakable confidence in its steps. It stopped in the middle of the room and looked around, as if scanning the faces. The room fell silent. Even Judge Campbell, known for her stern authority, paused mid-sentence, her eyes narrowing in confusion. Just as the bailiff stepped forward to usher the dog out, it let out a single sharp bark. Heads turned. The bailiff hesitated. The dog barked again, louder this time, its gaze fixed on the defendant. A ripple of unease spread through the courtroom. Whispers began to circulate. What was a dog doing here, and why was it barking? Before anyone could act, the dog barked a 3rd time, each sound echoing like a command. Then it sat, its tail wagging faintly, as if signaling its work was done. The defendant shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting between the dog and the judge. Judge Campbell raised her gavel to regain control, but before she could speak, the bailiff gasped and pointed at the dog's collar. A tiny key dangled from it, glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. The courtroom froze. What was this key? And why did the dog seem so intent on being here in this moment? The atmosphere crackled with suspense as everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Judge Martha Campbell's eyes remained fixed on the stray dog sitting competently in the middle of the courtroom. The key dangling from its collar caught the light, reflecting onto the faces of the curious crowd. For the first time in her long career, Judge Campbell was at a loss for words. She leaned slightly forward, her usually steady hands gripping the edge of her desk. "Bailiff, secure the dog," she finally commanded, her voice breaking the stunned silence. The bailiff hesitated for a moment, then approached the dog cautiously. The stray didn't move, its gaze remained locked on the defendant, David Hollis, the wealthy businessman accused of embezzling millions from local charities. Hollis squirmed in his chair, his polished exterior showing cracks as the dog's presence unsettled him. "What's going on here?" the defense attorney barked, rising from his seat. "This is highly irregular. Remove the animal immediately." The prosecutor remained silent, watching the scene unfold with interest. Prosecutor Elaine Morgan, known for her sharp instincts, narrowed her eyes at the defendant. She noticed his unease and whispered to her assistant, "He's nervous." "Why?" Meanwhile, the bailiff reached the stray, kneeling to inspect its collar. The dog allowed it, sitting still as if it understood the gravity of the situation. The bailiff unhooked the small, rusted key and held it up for the judge to see. "Your Honor, this key was attached to the dog's collar," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "A key?" Judge Campbell asked, her brow furrowing. "What does it unlock?" Before anyone could answer, the dog stood up and began walking toward the defense table, its movements deliberate and purposeful. Gasps rippled through the crowd as it stopped directly in front of Hollis, sitting again and letting out a soft growl. Hollis recoiled, his face pale, his hands gripping the table tightly. "Is this some kind of stunt?" Hollis's lawyer demanded, his voice rising in anger. "Your Honor, this is an outrageous disruption." Judge Campbell raised a hand to silence him. "Enough," she said, her tone cutting through the tension. "Bailiff, secure the dog and take it to the side for now." Let's get back to... Wait, Prosecutor Morgan interrupted, rising from her seat. Your Honor, may I inspect that key? This may be relevant to the case. Judge Campbell hesitated but nodded. The bailiff handed the key to Morgan, who examined it closely. Her sharp eyes widened slightly as she turned it over in her hands. The rusty metal bore a faint marking, an emblem she recognized from the evidence file. This emblem, Morgan said, holding up the key for the courtroom to see, matches the logo of a private storage facility in town, a facility that's tied to Mr. Hollis. The murmurs grew louder. Hollis's lawyer protested, but Judge Campbell banged her gavel to restore order. Quiet. Prosecutor Morgan, continue. Morgan stepped forward, her voice steady and confident. Your Honor, we've been investigating Mr. Hollis for months. We believe he used a storage unit under a fake name to hide critical evidence, documents that would prove his embezzlement. This key might lead us to that evidence. The crowd buzzed with excitement and shock. Hollis's lawyer slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. You can't base a warrant on the actions of a stray dog. This entire proceeding is turning into a circus. Judge Campbell fixed him with a steely glare. Mr. Carter, if your client has nothing to hide, then he has nothing to worry about. Prosecutor Morgan, your motion is granted. Bailiff, escort the prosecutor to ensure the warrant is executed without delay. The bailiff nodded and quickly exited the courtroom with Morgan, the key clutched tightly in her hand. The dog, still sitting near Hollis, watched them leave, its tail wagging faintly, as if satisfied with the turn of events. Hollis's face had gone from pale to ashen, and he whispered furiously to his lawyer, who struggled to maintain his composure. Back in the courtroom, Judge Campbell addressed the audience. We will adjourn until further notice. Bailiff, ensure the dog is taken care of and kept safe. This situation is unprecedented, but we must follow where the evidence leads. As the room began to clear, whispers filled the air. Who was this dog? How had it known to bring the key? And what would they find in the storage unit? Judge Campbell remained at her bench, watching as the dog was gently led out of the room. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of intrigue she hadn't experienced since her early days on the bench. This was no ordinary case. And the dog was no ordinary witness. Inside the crowded courtroom, chaos erupted as a stray dog burst through the doors, barking 3 sharp barks before sitting regally in the center aisle. Moments later, an event unfolded that left everyone frozen in shock. What secret was this mysterious canine trying to reveal? The air was thick with tension as the trial of the decade reached its climax. Every seat was packed, journalists scribbling furiously, spectators leaning forward in anticipation. Presiding over the proceedings was the formidable Judge Martha Campbell, her steely gaze and iron demeanor known to command respect from even the most unruly defendants. At the defense table sat David Hollis, a wealthy real estate tycoon accused of defrauding hundreds of investors out of their life savings. His expensive suit and polished demeanor couldn't completely mask the sweat beading on his forehead as the prosecution prepared their closing arguments. Then came the interruption no one expected. The heavy courtroom doors creaked open, and in trotted a scruffy German Shepherd mix, its coat matted but its bearing oddly dignified. The bailiff moved to intercept, but froze when the dog let out 3 precise barks that echoed through the silent chamber. All eyes turned to the animal as it sat perfectly still in the center of the room, its intelligent gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd before locking onto Hollis. The businessman visibly paled, his hands gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. Judge Campbell, momentarily stunned into silence, finally spoke. Bailiff, please remove this animal from Dash. Before she could finish, the bailiff gasped. Your Honor. There's something on its collar. A small, tarnished key dangled from the dog's worn leather collar, catching the fluorescent light. Prosecutor Elaine Morgan's sharp eyes widened in recognition. That's the emblem of First National Safe Deposit, she murmured. The same bank where Mr. Hollis keeps his private boxes. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Hollis's attorney shouted objections, but the judge's gavel silenced them all. Enough. Judge Campbell boomed. Prosecutor Morgan, you will examine this development immediately. Bailiff, secure the dog and that key. As the bailiff carefully removed the key from the collar, the German Shepherd, now calm, allowed itself to be led away, though its eyes never left Hollis. The businessman looked like he might be sick. Outside the courthouse, Morgan and police sped toward the bank. The key fit perfectly into safe deposit box number 347. Inside, they found exactly what the dog had seemingly led them to: stacks of documents detailing Hollis's offshore accounts and shell companies, the missing puzzle pieces to prove his guilt beyond any doubt. Back in court, when Morgan presented the evidence, Hollis's carefully constructed facade crumbled. The jury needed less than 2 hours to reach their verdict, guilty on all counts. As bailiffs led Hollis away in handcuffs, the mystery dog, now dubbed Justice by court staff, sat quietly beside the prosecutor. No one could explain how the animal had known to bring the key at that exact moment. The shelter worker who later scanned Justice for a microchip made an even more startling discovery: the dog had once been part of Hollis's private security kennel before being abandoned when he failed to perform. Justice now lives happily with Judge Campbell, a daily reminder that sometimes the truth finds its way to light in the most unexpected ways. His portrait hangs in the courthouse lobby, beneath a plaque that reads, "In honor of Justice, who proved that sometimes the truth has 4 legs and a wagging tail."